Welcome to another edition of Whiskey, Games, and Nerd Stuff. And today we're enjoying a cup of coffee, and we're going to talk about Absolute Evil #1. Let's go ahead and take a sip. And I'm going to go ahead and move this coffee out of the way in case I spill. So it says Absolute Evil #1, but my understanding this is a one-shot, but I would love for this to be an ongoing series. So let me know if you've heard something different in the comment section. And this is one of the alternate covers. It's a great looking cover. Let's go ahead and open this up. Absolute Evil. And then you've got, and I know I'm going to say the names wrong on here, Ewing, Camuncoli, Nesi, and Fajardo Jr. So again, I know I mispronounced those names, so I do apologize. So what's really cool about Absolute Evil, and there will be spoilers in this, so this has been out for a couple weeks now. If you have not read it, go ahead and read it. If you have read it, I would love to hear your thoughts on it. And if you have not been caught up or reading the various Absolute comic issues, lines, I would highly recommend them. They're really, really good. So Absolute Evil begins in 1951 with the, they're calling it the House of Un-American Activities Committees, kind of like what they did with McCarthyism back in the day. And Hawkman is here, and it's kind of been interesting how it opens up. It says, "Gentlemen of the House of Un-American Activities Committees, you called me to this closed-door session to answer certain questions I've thought long and hard about the answers. During my covert work as the Hawkman, my true identity has remained my own secret. Now, you say I have to give that secret up? My face, my name, my life? I do consider these my own business, but sometimes business takes a backseat to pleasure. And you know what? It'll be a real pleasure to inform on those commie rats nibbling away at this great country. What do you want to know, boys?" So right off the bat, it's starting off with Hawkman, who looks like it's going to rat off the various superheroes of the day back then. Really like how this is done. Then it moves on to now, where we get Absolute Green Arrow. And Absolute Green Arrow, Oliver Queen is talking to Roy. And you can tell just from this couple panels that he is not as good as he is in the original comics. He looks like he missed one in here, but he's talking about how he needs to do something and how things need to change. And from the tone of this, it looks like he's still, very rich. He's a billionaire, and he talks about different things what you need to do. And he talks about what would I do with this money? I mean, I can do the computers. I've got the car. I've got the, what else am I going to do? Then what's interesting, and they kind of went here, which they kind of pull out the where's the Epstein files thing. No, it's look, I told you about the island, right? And all those private flights, just kids. Because he's bought the cops, Roy. He's bought the courts. The system was built for guys like this. I got to do something. Somebody's got to do something. Something what? So why not me? All this stuff. I have this money. What does it do? What do I do? What are we actually doing here? Any of us. Because something, it's killing us, man. Some moral cancer is rotting us inside. Rotting our souls. So he's talking about how in the current Absolute universe, he can tell something's rotten. Tell something's going on. And he's got to do something about it. And anybody who pays attention to modern politics at the time of filming this, there's a lot of feeling that there's a cancer there, that there's a rot there, that there's corruption there. And, I'm sure on both sides of the aisles or all sides of the aisles, there's going to be cases made that you can say because he's bought the cops, Roy. He's bought the courts. The system was built for guys like this. There's people who the haves we continue to have more, and the have-nots continue to have less. And this is kind of the crux of what he's talking about. So then it goes ahead and talks about the guy that he was going to go ahead and target. He's walking in. They go into this room. His name is Hector Hammond. And then in the room, you've got them talking about it. And you've got a series of individuals in the room. And he starts joking, and he says, "No, this room is not for games, not for play. Speak or work or do not speak. Who the hell do you think you are?" And he goes, "I am Rasha Ghul." So if you're not caught up with this, this is ultimate Rasha Ghul. If you do know that, what that means, then be glad and be silent. I was being rhetorical, you putz. He says, "I have to side with Mr. Ghul on this. Our time is more valuable than any resources on Earth, Hammond. Far too precious to waste on your little jokes." Agreed. I don't enjoy jokes. And this is absolute Joker, who's called the Joker because no one's ever seen him laugh. And what's interesting is this is a sentiment that a lot of people will say about the 1% is, she makes this comment in here about how their time is more valuable than any resource in the world. And I'm sure I haven't been the only person who's been involved in meetings or have watched and participated in various activities where you've got individuals who think their time is more important than anything. So what she does is she goes to kind of talk about the history of the early, what was going on with what they were doing with superheroes. And she goes, "Thank you, gentlemen. Let's begin. New York, 1939. Chemist Wesley Dodd gets rich off his patents for..." Also talked about how Wesley goes ahead and invents this compound. Later, a person calling themselves Sandman makes a scene and uses the sleeping gas to make start doing some good. And then he ends up being, dying in a mysterious accident, and years later, U.S. military acquires some of the very lethal nerve gas. And she's saying, what that lethal gas brewed from doctors' stolen notes? Ask the conspiracy theorists. Did it win us the war? Ask the historians. They'll say yes. Then she goes on to talk about Wildcat. In 1942, Gotham, Ted Grant, a professional boxer, is framed for murder by small-time hoods. Grant's young. He's romantic. He puts on a cat costume, beats the hell out of them, clears his name. He calls himself the Wildcat. The neighborhood eats it up. So he busts some more heads, small-time hoods, then medium-time hoods, working his way out. On a stakeout, he overhears a factory inspector taking a bribe from a munitions magnate to look the other way on safety centers. And then he comes into $50,000 tax-free, and that's the end of Wildcat. Grant buys a gym as Schenectady, trains a couple of champions, dies peacefully in his sleep at an old age. Then she kind of goes on to talk about what happened, how because of that safety inspector had these accidents, people died, but they were able to build the gas that some say won the war. Then she goes on to talk about Iron Marino, a movie stuntman and a real freak of nature. Rumor had it he could stop a bullet at 50 yards and outrun a locomotive. He decided he wanted to fight a never-ending battle for truth and justice. That never-ending battle seems to involve a lot of socialist meetings. He's called before HUAC in a special closed-door session around the same time as a couple other adventurers of that time period. So he's called in that same meeting that Hawkman was called into. But Marino refuses to name names, calls McCarthy a demigod. That's the end of him. Within a year, he's living in a lonely shackle in the Nevada desert, which accidentally was targeted for chemical weapons tests. Someone filed the wrong paperwork, apparently. Marino's lungs weren't as tough as the rest of him, but they were just as red. She goes, "These are 3 out of 100 examples throughout history. There have been individuals who have acted outside the status quo, and the status quo is dealt with as individuals one way or another. Who remembers them now? So it goes, and it so has always gone until now." Then she goes on to talk about the Gateway incident with Wonder Woman. Let's go ahead and take a sip of coffee. And how the military listened to her and didn't arrest her. Then they go on to talk about Superman. Then they go on to talk about Batman. And Joker says, he didn't take the money. She goes, yes, exactly. Unlike Ted Grant, he didn't take the money. And then she talks about Green Lantern and Flash, and she says, what else is out there? What else is going on? We're at a precipice of change, and these things are going to mess up the established order, and we've got to do something. She goes, previously, we could meet these all threats individually. I no longer believe that's possible. So he goes on to talk about how he just thinks about money and he can do something. And Rashagul goes, nope, I think you do. I think it's time that something changes. And then Hawkman brings in Oliver Queen, throws him on the ground, obviously dead. So Oliver Queen, absolute Green Arrow, lasted a whole one issue. And Ra's al Ghul talks about, that's how we solve problems, Mr. Hammond. Not in a month, not in a day, not sitting around the table, no chump change, no games, and no jokes. And they talk about this. So they go on to talk about a little bit more. And what's interesting is Joker says, no, not friends, may I have the floor. Because they were talking about what are they going to do, be friends or whatnot. And this is where it gets really interesting. So Joker sits up and goes, I'm going to share some recent research from a physics. Start that over. I'm going to share some recent research from a particle physics laboratory under Aegis. Needless to say, this is proprietary information. If any of what I'm about to tell you reaches outside rooms, any ears outside this room, I'll take it seriously. And then you have Absolute Brainiac, who's watching through Ra's al Ghul's glasses. This is known in popular science as the God particle. It's considered by many to be the final piece of the puzzle of quantum mechanics. That one elementary particle that confirms how the universe works. They're wrong. Last year we found a better one. The true end of the search, and we call it the Omega particle. Studying it has revealed fundamental truths about the world we live in. This particle forms the basic building blocks of all creation. And you know how we know that? It behaves, how it reacts, what it reacts to. This energy has a spiritual dimension to it, a moral dimension. And then he kind of talks about how you're joking. He says, no, he doesn't joke. He goes, listen. The fundamental forces of the universe tend in one direction, and now we know that includes societal forces. Gravity distorts the universe, and so the river runs, the curtain falls, the yoke is heavy. We accept that man is tethered to the earth. We do not believe a man can fly. With this discovery, we must now accept that there is likewise a moral gravity pulling us down, keeping everything that is in its place. Existence is ordered and ordained. Water flows downhill. Those who have. Those who have not. The rich get richer. The poor get poorer. Some hold the winning cards, and some clutch at a handful of jokers. This is not chance. This is not accident. This is design. The sore losers in the game of life see their fate woven into the fabric of creation and rail against it and call it doom. There's a philosophical term for that perspective, the just world fallacy. And imagine being so twisted, so filled with hate, so paralyzed by fear. Imagine thinking it a fallacy that the world could be just. So what's interesting here is, and I'm going to go ahead and take a drink of coffee. He talks about the world order is for the rich to be rich, the powerful be the powerful, and then those that have not continue to have not. He's making a moral case for what's not only going on in the absolute world, but I think a lot of people would say, if you look at what's going on in the current political climate, he's making a case for the status quo of the rich getting richer, the poor getting poorer, and everybody fighting for scraps unless you're that elite tier. So it makes you wonder, the people who have so much and fight like hell to keep every single penny they have when there's millions and millions of people starving, where just a little bit could help so many. It makes you wonder, is it because they're so ingrained with a thought that they're ordained to be like this and nobody else matters? So it's very interesting. So then what's awesome about this is he goes on to say, but the world is just. We have evidence, not of doom, but of a natural order, worked upon the world by a higher power. If spoiled, little anarchists like that late Mr. Queen would have stood against that order. This I call injustice, and injustice must be fought. Chaos must be fought. We must fight, and how can we fail? God is on our side. Then he goes on to talk about a little bit more. and how they're going to form the Justice League. And the Justice League is going to be filled with the villains from Absolute Universe. And then it goes on to talk about they're kind of flipping here where Brainiac is saying, okay, he's talking to Mr. Mirror Master, that he feels like there's a balance between the people and they need one more person. And we get a nice little surprise. So in here you've got just a couple talking. And that couple says, they're talking, they're just drinking tea. He goes, and she said, it's a wonderful life, isn't it? Well, I certainly think so. It's strange. I was an angry young man, Dora, envious of others for their power, their popularity, even their looks. But right here, in this moment, I can't think of a single thing I want. And she goes, you can't because the children are in bed. And he says, hold that thought. And the phone rings. And she says, that phone, always the worst timing. No rest for the wicked, as they say. I'll just be a moment, darling. And then he answers the phone and says, this is Lex Luthor speaking. How can I help you? And then it turns to be absolute Lex Luthor. So I thought this was a fantastic issue. This is one of the reasons that I'm enjoying so much coffee. I am enjoying the coffee, but I'm enjoying so many comics lately. Is the Absolute run this last year has been amazing, and so of course has the Ultimate series for Marvel. But if you have not read any of the Absolute Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, Flash, Martial Manhunter, get them. If you haven't read this, get this. This is such an amazing, great comic. I can't wait to see what more is coming in this Absolute universe, and I can't wait to see the animated series or the movies that will take place in this. Would really like to hear what your thoughts and questions are about this issue. Are you enjoying the Absolute run? And what are your takes and thoughts, no matter what your political affiliation is, on what he said in here and what's going on in the world? I'm always interested to hear people's comments. I just ask you keep them respectful. Please like, subscribe, and all that fun stuff. And until next time, cheers.